even though the idea of social media is very much short-term marketing, it allows you to kind of think of it as like good recycling of content. The idea of how we reuse materials to save our earth, let's reuse content to save our sanity.
Hey there, and welcome to the Event Crushed podcast. Each week, we'll be chatting about all things wedding industry, entrepreneurship, and how to crush it in life and business. I'm so glad you're here. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. Hello, my friend, and welcome back to Event Crushed. This is our first Wednesday release, which is so exciting. I am kind of loving this midweek podcast drop, so I hope you enjoy it as well. You don't have to wait all the way till Friday. So all future episodes will be coming out on Wednesdays, just as a reminder. And for our first ever Wednesday release, we have a fantastic episode for you today. You will get to hear from Danison, who is the owner and founder of Bowtie and Brush. Danison has recently relocated his company to the Pacific Northwest, which is just wonderful. We're so excited to have him over on this side of the country. And he specializes in creating a unique guest experience through watercolor guest portraits, as well as calligraphy and engraving. Through Bowtie and Brush, he is able to blend his love of art and business to create stunning watercolor guest portraits and personalized details for unforgettable weddings and events. He also has a background in accounting and a just huge passion for learning. He's all about encouraging his fellow business owners, sharing what's worked for him, and celebrating their wins. Whether he's painting live in an event or helping others level up their businesses, his goal is to make every interaction matter. And I just love that so much. We had a wonderful conversation about marketing and content creation and really just finding a sustainable way to create content where it doesn't feel like a burden and it doesn't feel like we're having to reinvent the wheel every single week. So I think you're going to learn a ton from Danison in this episode, and be sure to check out his information in the show notes so you can get to know him more and connect with him online and hopefully have the opportunity to work with him in the future. And with that, let's welcome Danison to the show. Hey, Danison, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with me here today.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be talking to you and meeting you essentially face to face for the first time. So I'm very excited.
Yes, likewise. I know it's fun. I think we originally connected on Threads because Mimi, actually, with Wilder Social, who I've had on the podcast before, she had mentioned on one of your posts because you were talking about moving to the Pacific Northwest, and she knew that I'm over here. So she just kind of connected us that way. So yeah, I'm super excited to have you here. And I would love it if you could just share a bit about yourself and your background in the wedding industry and what you do and all of that fun stuff.
Yes. Hello, podcast listeners. Super excited to be here. I am Danison. I am the owner and artist of Bowtie and Brush, where I specialize in creating unique guest experiences through live watercolor, calligraphy, and engraving. And my business is originally from Florida. And Becky mentioned that I'm recently moving to the Pacific Northwest, and I've been in the business, at least in Florida, for 3 years. But prior to that, I've kind of been a freelance artist. So I got really my start in the wedding industry back when I was doing my own wedding invitations. I was I've always been a super crafty and creative person with penmanship and just all of that. So I was I need to learn this. I want to do all the stationery. And that was the one thing I wanted to DIY. And then everything else, I was I need other professionals to do it. And so I was able to do that. And then I didn't really think of doing the wedding business then because my background's actually in accounting. And until I got my photos back and then started sharing them on social, then friends and family were asking, hey, can you do this for my wedding? Do you still have those table numbers? Can I borrow them for my wedding? And so it started spiraling into like the signage and stationery where bow tie and brush started off, and then it's kind of transitioned more into this live art and like unique guest experience. So yeah, that's kind of how I got my start in the wedding industry, mainly from my own wedding and then just people saying, hey, you should probably do this. And yeah, I've never looked back since.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I always just love hearing how people get started in the industry, and it's just so fun to hear. And I also have to tell you, I love your business name so much. I used to have a wedding blog. So back before I was a planner, I had a wedding blog and it was called Bow Ties and Bliss. So when I saw your business name, it just completely reminded me of my wedding blog. And I was like, oh, I love this.
Oh, yay. Yeah, no, bow ties have always been kind of a big thing for me. I've actually learned how to tie a bow tie prior to like a regular tie growing up, just mainly because, and I would get so many compliments about it. And I think it's just such a fun way for me to actually just like get excited about my brand because I love just wearing a bow tie and showing up to events. And it's also like one of the very few times that a guy will normally wear a bow tie instead of a regular tie. Usually like the groom will wear it. So that's kind of the story behind bow tie. And then obviously brush because I love
Yeah.
paintbrushes. I'm an artist, that stuff.
Oh, that's so fun. I love it. I am really excited for today's topic. It has to do with marketing, but I think you're coming at it from like a really cool perspective. And so it's a little bit different than just like your normal marketing conversation. But we're going to talk about kind of putting together a sustainable content schedule, basically so that people aren't feeling like they're constantly having to recreate the wheel or always having to stay up on social media trends. And so this is just a much more sustainable way to create content and do your marketing. So can you just share a bit about how did you come up with your sustainable content schedule? If you could walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so to touch on your point, and like for everyone listening, I am not a marketing expert. I am just a small business owner with a accounting background, and I like to do art. So, as a small business owner, though, we are all marketers, and so I think like one of the immediate tools that we all have that's accessible to everyone is social media. And I think I'm really going to be focusing more on Instagram in our conversation today. And so usually people fall in two categories. They are on my category where I love social media or Instagram because it's a way for me to interact with my audience and to market myself. And then we have the other folks who just absolutely hate it. They dread it. There's an overwhelming cloud like just hovering over saying like, what is going on with that algorithm? And I don't know what to do, or it just takes so much energy to create reels and post every day. And so I feel like a lot of people that I talk to are on that end. And I really so badly want them to be on the side where they're excited to share. And I feel like before, like older days, Instagram, like everyone was happy until they started incorporating so much and people felt the need to keep up with that. And I'm not about that. And so I really wanted to create something where I was showing up consistently and I didn't want to feel this dread and to keep going at it, but I still want to show up on social media. And so the idea of creating a sustainable content schedule is something that I'm excited about, that is easy for me, even in busy seasons, because very much in the wedding season, no matter where you are, there is going to be peak and low seasons. And so the idea behind a sustainable thing is that it's all year round, that you can plan for it. And even when you're busy and exhausted doing events, that you're still showing up on social media and portraying that brand that your business is alive and well.
Yeah, I love that you're talking about having it be year round because like you said, we especially in the Pacific Northwest, I know maybe other parts of the world it's not quite as seasonal, but like it's really is seasonal here. And I think a lot of us really struggle once like busy wedding season hits. We really struggle to consistently show up on Instagram or wherever. And so, yes, I just love this idea of this sustainable method that is really meant to be year round and not just like when you have time. Like during the season, I'm finding right now, I'm like, oh, I have a lot more time to actually spend on my social media and make this a priority. Whereas in wedding season, it's like that just kind of gets thrown to the wayside.
Uh-huh. Exactly. And year round. And I think it's funny because I'm somewhat also in the slow-ish season or now transitioning and I can kind of feel the peaks and valleys. And whenever it's so slow, I feel like I'm posting constantly. And where in like the peak seasons, I'm not. And I feel like there's also a mind shift change that I get excited that I want to post something almost immediately, but I'm like, okay, let's schedule this out so it's spread out so I don't lose this content because it's evergreen. Instead of just posting it now and like then dropping off, we can kind of plan it for it in the content schedule to make sure that it's spread across evenly and that I'm not getting too click happy to try and post it like right now, right there. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Are there particular tools or systems that you use to help you put together this sustainable content schedule?
Yes. So I know that there's a bunch of like planners out there, and I'm an advocate of use whatever best fits how you think and how you want to schedule and all the different features. But I use NG. I know you've spoken about it.
Mm-hmm.
Over in the podcast and that you signed up during Wedding MBA
Mm-hmm.
for it. But I absolutely love it. That's my scheduler where I can schedule my posts for Instagram. I use it also for LinkedIn and like Pinterest. And there's just so many other functionalities to it that I've seen versus other tools that are out there, just because it does come from a marketing background, not just kind of like a scheduler to make things look pretty, which I think those generally started around that era when the feed was still very much aesthetic and you can kind of move things to make sure it looks like it. You can still do that with NG, but it comes with a marketing background. So there's an AI copywriter that helps you or helps your posts get captioned in your brand voice that you upload. It's also a way to kind of just hone in on your brand with a brand kit. Like even for this podcast, I sent you the link to my media kit to kind of give you information on me. So that's also a great tool for people who want to be on podcasts. And yeah, and then a lot of that just stems down to, also a recent update that they are adding in terms of like content pillars. So that's kind of, I think we're going to be touching upon it a little later, or I definitely want to talk about it later. But it helps you kind of get a plan of like why you're posting, putting a purpose behind why you're posting, not just kind of like trying to meet the algorithm of Instagram or trying to meet a posting quota. It actually kind of helps me take a step back of like, is it educational? Is it supposed to be engaging my audience, my ideal target, or am I promoting something?
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of wedding pros just get stuck in this like cycle of I just have to post. So I just need to come up with something, but I don't know what to post. So then they're just throwing together like just meaningless content. Honestly, it's like
Yeah.
it doesn't mean anything. There's no educational value. Like it's just like, here's a pretty picture and there's like a quote or something. And that really doesn't do much for us other than maybe just like the consistency's sake. But then you're not going to get a lot of engagement on that. So like Instagram's not going to reward that kind of content. So I don't know. So yeah, having this like intentionality behind it and like why, like getting back to the why am I posting and what, like what good is this going to do in the world if I'm just posting random things that really aren't going to benefit anybody?
Yeah, no, there's such a lack. Sometimes I feel like when people, I just want to completely agree on that because there's so many people that because I have this idea behind myself, I do a little thing of like scrolling through my feed of like people who are posting and I'm like I try to even look at those posts and be like what purpose is behind this post. And a lot of the times it is just like, there isn't anything even in the caption that's engaging or sharing information. And it just kind of feels blah. And I feel like
Mhm.
those are the people, at least from my interactions, are the ones that are always stressing out about or dreading Instagram. And so the ones that are having like making engaging content, those are the people that are finding that it is easier because there is a purpose behind posting as opposed to just trying to remain trendy or just consistency for consistency's sake.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. And when you were describing the two different people earlier, I mean, I have to laugh because it is really true. Like you love it or you hate it. But then I kind of was thinking and like, I feel like I'm both at like different seasons. Like, cause sometimes I really do love Instagram and I have a lot of fun and I enjoy creating content and I just feel like everything's kind of working. People are engaging and I'm like, yes, I love this. But if I get busy and then I kind of fall behind and then it's like trying to get back into that mindset and that flow of things can be a little difficult for me and then I end up getting discouraged because I'm not having as good of engagement and so it's like harder to get back into that. So that's why just this whole idea I find very appealing because hopefully it would prevent this like cycle of I love it, I hate it, I love it, I hate it.
Yeah, no, I think I'd like that. And then also, I guess to answer that, or from my perspective, is like that's how I also plan my content of during the times where it's slow and easy for me to be on Instagram, I make those posts with a purpose of engagement. And then in terms of the really busy season, since I know I'm not going to be really engaging and like looking at my phone, I put those as more educational where I'm not necessarily wanting the engagement, but I just want people to know that I'm still showing up for them by helping them with knowledge about my business for like any other trends that I'm noticing or just like answering frequently asked questions typically. So like that's also like maybe another tip that some people who are feeling the same way with you can think about it of like instead of thinking of posting for engagement, even if you're just sharing educational content, it shows you as an expert in your field. And then people are going to be saving that, sharing it, and all that stuff, as opposed to the ones where if you are trying to like get comments or get feedback in your comments section, I think those are different ways to kind of combat the seasonality of different times of how you're feeling about Instagram. Because we're not always going to feel like the best about Instagram. Even me, like my lows are still pretty high just because I love it so much, but
Yeah.
it's still going to have peaks and valleys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And just really quick, looking at your Instagram feed, like everybody should go look at Danison's feed. It's awesome. And all of your new branding photos are so fun. But like it's very clear that you enjoy it and that you're happy to show up there. And I think that that is the kind of thing that people are going to gravitate towards. Like they're not going to be engaging with content that feels forced. Like, oh, I knew I was supposed to post today. So here's my post, but I like you can tell that they don't really care. And so I just think it's like if you can put off that kind of energy that I am having fun, I'm happy to be here, people are going to gravitate to that. And I think you do a very good job of that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And like this might be like a hot take, so sorry, cover your belly buttons, but like if you aren't excited to market yourself, you might really need to revisit your whole business or your brand because like how are people going to be excited to work with you if you are not excited about selling yourself and your services? Like you don't need to be a salesperson, but like you need to be excited to talk about your business because at the end of the day, that's just what marketing is. And that's what social media is or should be for your business. And so if you aren't showing up and excited to share your message, people subconsciously will notice that. And so like if you aren't having fun, you need to kind of take a step back, and you can even reach out to me. I love to just like cheer people on. I'm like a small business cheerleader, not really a coach. And so like I love to just hype people up and like make them excited about their business that they want to be able to share and show up on social media and create that community who and ultimately find those leads that will book you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really well said. I love that. I think it's true though. Like I've heard so many people say over the years, like, oh, I love my business. I love doing weddings. They love all these things, but I hate marketing or I hate sales or, any of those things. And it's like, it's part of the territory. Like we can't have one without the other, being a small business owner of any kind. But I mean, in the wedding industry, like we really are, we're doing it all. Like we're marketing, we're selling ourselves, we're doing it all. And so we might not like it, but we have to get good at it and we have to be intentional about it because otherwise we're not going to have any business. Okay. So you've talked quite a bit about like educational content or providing value. Do you have any suggestions of how wedding pros can do that with their audiences? Maybe that's not something they're doing currently. And I was just curious if you had any suggestions of how we can be sharing educational content that is appealing to our audience.
Yeah, of course. So frequently asked questions is something that I'm not seeing a lot of wedding professionals take advantage of, especially for content when they're thinking of stuff that or they're trying to come up with content. It's easy graphic post, or even if you're comfortable with showing your face on the camera, is really speaking directly to your clients of, hey, this is a frequently asked question. Here is the answer. And I think that providing that content for future potential clients or even just other vendors who are trying to understand more about how you work, that allows them to have less friction when they do actually start reaching out, because half the time, there's a lot of friction sometimes if they have too many questions trying to ask, or they don't know what questions to ask. If you already have that on your portfolio for them to kind of just look through your Instagram, before they even reach out, they might already know all these questions and they already get that experience of you already talking to them face to face via video. So then they're more familiar with you. And that just allows you to seem like you're an expert. You're already answering their questions before they even have to reach out to you. And so I think that that's such a great piece of educational content that people are sleeping on. Because even from my experience recently, a lot of people or a lot of clients, one, don't have as many questions because they specifically have said, yeah, you post your frequently asked questions every Friday and you have a bunch of educational content that like all the questions we have were already answered.
Yeah, it's such great advice. And I agree with you that like people are not taking advantage of that enough. It's such an easy thing to do. Like we all get questions from couples, especially as a planner, we get a lot of questions. And so being able to preemptively answer those so that then they're not having to ask those questions is so helpful. And I also think that that kind of content does really, really well on Instagram because I think you mentioned this before, but then people share it. And it's not just, they share it and they save it. And it's not just couples that are doing that, but like other wedding pros. Like whenever I do kind of educational posts, like wedding planning tips, those get shared primarily by other vendors, which is awesome because then that puts it in front of other potential couples and clients. So it's kind of a win-win. And yeah, I think that kind of content, it's such high value. And it's also not really hard to create because we all have a lot of knowledge about our craft and things that we can share that we already probably are sharing with our couples in real life. And so it's just kind of taking that and translating that into, it could be just like a carousel. It could be a static post or a reel, any of the options, like you said, and those usually do really, really well.
Yes. And I absolutely love carousels. And it's such an easy way to repeatedly show up on people's feeds, because for those of you who might not know, but like every time you have a carousel post, it can show up again in another person's feed or that same feed, but on a different slide of that carousel post. So it's like truly my favorite thing. And like static images aren't dead. And yeah, it's super easy. And another way for, at least for me, because I love aesthetics still in terms of my Instagram feed. And so creating like a template that you can just pop in all of those typographics, and like just alternating certain brand colors. So then it's not just like a singular color multiple times on your feed. You can kind of rotate through it. At least that's how I do it for my graphic posts. But yeah, that's another way to also like create covers for your reels and yeah, just still make easy content.
Yeah, definitely. Can I ask you a question that is I mean, it's related because it has to do with Instagram, but I'm just curious. I'm curious to get your thoughts on the new Instagram feed that everybody was freaking out about. I'm just curious if you like it, if you don't like it, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so I believe you're referring to the whole not square and it's like the rectangle things.
Correct.
So I think I'm also very much a person that doesn't like to fight anything that's pushed. I just learn to go with it. That's just my personality. But I absolutely love it. Mainly because most of the photos that I used to post anyway were, 4x5 or whatever, their portrait orientation. So they were very rarely squares. And so I absolutely love it. It just personally, I think it makes things look more aesthetically pleasing. And then also it just allows for more details to be shown on a photo for our photographer friends. So it's not just, cropped into a square and where you're like missing half of the head or like the detail florals on the aisle. So I absolutely love that. And there is the functionality that you can go and adjust it, for like the square post. And I know it's not the most aesthetically pleasing cause like if it is generally a square and you adjust it, it'll create either the option of like white bars or black bars. And if it truly is annoying you, this is kind of an excuse for you to, one, you can archive that post. It doesn't need to remain there. And then you can kind of just make a mental note, you know what? I'm going to reshare it in that full format. And then one, you have another content post in the future that you can kind of spread out and, put into your content schedule. And then voila.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. At least from what I was seeing on like threads and different things, like people weren't super happy about it, which I was kind of surprised by. And some of them were photographers. And I was like, I thought photographers would be stoked about this. Like, so it's just been fun hearing everyone's different perspectives on it. But yeah, I don't mind it at all. I do like it. It's growing on me. The only thing I didn't like was that I did used to do a lot of square posts that were like my planning tips. Like those were squares. So those look kind of funny, but I literally think I will recreate them all and reshare them because I'm all about repurposing content. And a lot of them were from a long time ago. And a lot of the people that are following me now probably never even saw them. So
that's such an excellent point. And I was thinking about that when I was prepping for this podcast of like, there really isn't any issue with doing that because of the fact that like your marketing message, we shouldn't be reinventing the wheel. We are the experts, but our clients are non-experts. They are new to this. And then also apparently with like the generation, like exactly how long are they actually going to be scrolling? So if you have something that's more than even like 36 posts, more than likely they're just going to be skimming through it. So if you have educational content with graphics, you might as well archive them or just reshare them if they are still aligned with your brand colors and still with your services that you're providing. Like, reshare them, repurpose them, especially when you are feeling like you're struggling on trying to think of something new.
Mm-hmm. Oh, such good ideas. So if someone is listening to this episode and they're like, man, I just feel really overwhelmed with Instagram and maybe they just feel stuck and they don't know where to go from here. And they've been trying to like keep up with trends and reels and things like that, but it's just not sustainable. What advice would you give to that person?
Forgo the trends. I think trends is something for someone who has a really good foundation and solid schedule or a good relationship with social media. I think trends and trying to hop on that is somewhat, for lack of a better word, toxic, I guess, for someone who's trying to get a handle on marketing. Because marketing really comes down to a basic foundational message that you're trying to share with your audience. And when you're trying to hop on or trying to create something that's trendy and it doesn't fully go with your brand or how you're already showing up on social media, it will feel off. And so people will mark that or clock that. And so really, I would say to anyone who wants to be trendy, if you aren't already showing up on social media and have a pretty good relationship with it, that I think that shouldn't be your focus, especially going into this year, and to really just focus on content schedule of things that you already know, things that you are excited about, and things that are easy.
Okay, well, that goes perfectly into my next question. And maybe you kind of just answered this. But so if someone could only focus on 3 things in their content strategy, what would you recommend focusing on?
Yeah. So, in terms of like, I guess the idea behind it is like really remaining consistent and taking a step back on exactly how much you can show up in social media. Really, if you are super busy and don't really like it, I would really suggest even just posting once a week until you get like a real hang of it. Or maybe in your busy season, you can kind of just think of doing 1 post a week. And then like in your off seasons, then you can kind of up it to like 3 times a week. And like you can add on to it. And then, so consistency would be the one thing to focus on. The second would be to hone into your ideal client, really trying to be like, what content do they want to see? And more than likely, yes, trendy, we can leave the trending to other people. But in terms of like your business, what you want to share about your business to help them and to ease the entire process when they start working with you. And the third thing is like, get excited about it. Find something about your business, which you really should. And if you don't have anything excited, like my tip is to get a little brand shoot going on. So then that's the time where you're really focusing on one yourself as well as your brand. And when you get a good brand photographer, they give you this entire gallery that you're like, I want to share this. And like, yes, I'm also the fact of like, I just recently did a brand shoot and I wanted to share my images like almost all immediately, like post after post after post. But that's also why a content scheduler is great. So then like I can be like, okay, this is my schedule. I'm going to place these here, 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 scheduled out. So then I don't run out of content. And like most of those are great for showing your face and like showing the face behind the brand that shows like your authenticity. And so those are my 3 things. But then I guess on the same note for that, but in terms of like actual content to provide for it, I think really people should focus on just their services. So taking a list of your services and breaking that up. Like, for example, for planners, right? We can talk about generally what your services are. So if you're posting, let's just say once a week, on the first Monday, you can post about day of coordination. Second one, you're going to be talking about partial planning. Third one, you're going to do full planning. And like you can even just rotate through that and just know that you're going to post something, and you can post like a wedding, and you can just either do a graphic or you can do just a photo from a previous wedding that you have. Yeah. So services are a really big thing for focusing on in terms of a type of content. Then I would do even just like either a BTS or a face photo, just showing your face. And then you can even do a fun fact about you. And just really engaging, because a lot of the times those fun facts, even though we don't want to cloud our websites with just like unnecessarily fun facts, sometimes we like to curb them, but even just allowing that and allows some engagement, and then even, allows future couples to kind of really get to understand the face behind the business. And then last one would probably just be an FAQ. So another piece of educational content, which is separate from just kind of like talking and promoting your services of like what you do. But the frequently asked questions is a great way to kind of obviously create content and answer those questions that people ask about how to work with you. Even like the idea of how long or how much in advance should I book you, or what is needed to book you for my date, or just do you travel? Those type of questions. So services, little fun fact about you, just talking about your business, and then frequently asked questions. Those are an easy way to create like a sustainable content schedule. And then once you have that down, then we can kind of look into trends that truly align with our brand.
Yeah, those are all great ideas and super attainable. Like anybody could go right now and come up with some questions to answer and to get a fun photo of themselves and do some fun facts and write out about their services. And just there's 3 posts right there. And then, like you said, if you have more than one service, then you can do a post for each service. And yeah, so I love all of those ideas. One question that popped up as I was listening to you, have you, just because I know that some people have done it this way, so I was curious if you have ever done it this way, but have you ever had it where you have like a different day of the week is a different content bucket? I know some people would do like a wedding planning tip on Thursday and share a real wedding on Wednesday. And then I can't remember what else, but have you ever kind of broken it up by day like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, my days are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So, like, I do generally do that. But the only, like, fun one I do is FAQ Friday. So that's very popular. And so, yeah, I think it's very beneficial to do stuff like that. One, because if you're aligning your brand essentially with, like, a schedule and it has a fun name to it, anyone who's following you subconsciously or consciously will, like, know that, oh, it's Friday. This brand is going to be posting an FAQ Friday or Tip Tuesday. If they're following you consistently, like throughout the wedding process or even before, like after they're engaged, they're going to show up on that Tuesday looking forward to something because they know that it's consistent and they're showing up. And I think that speaks leaps and volumes as wedding professionals for people who want to know that the people that they are hiring are consistent and will show up. And so when you are committing to a schedule like that, which should be pretty easy, especially if you're pulling from your knowledge bank, I think that's going to speak leaps and bounds to potential clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So as we are getting close to wrapping up here, I wanted to see if you could share just like a mindset shift that you think maybe wedding pros could adopt regarding their content or like their, I don't know, view of social media. Like I mentioned that person earlier who maybe isn't having the best time right now. I guess just one mindset shift that person could make that would hopefully help them.
Yeah, I think we spoke about it before, but really thinking of social media and the content you're producing as evergreen. And like the moment that I started thinking of just like evergreen content of like, I want this to kind of live forever, even though the idea of social media is very much short-term marketing, it allows you to kind of think of it as like good recycling of content. It's like the idea of like how we reuse like materials to save our earth, like let's reuse content to save our sanity, in terms of social media. And so like being able to kind of look at content as something like to not be trendy, but rather to be useful, and that it's just consistent with my brand, consistent with my knowledge, and overall just like my business. And so being able to kind of just pull from that as opposed to just being like, I want to be trendy and go viral. And so the more that you can kind of understand that like your content and the knowledge and effort and the worth that goes into the post, that it's not just going to be for like a short-term thing. It's supposed to like allow yourself to be able to think that you're not reinventing the wheel every time. It's supposed to be something that you're just always going to be leaning back on and be like, this is my business. This is how I run it. This is how you should work with me. And so I think once people think of that evergreen content as opposed to like just right now, I think that'll help create a better relationship with social media. Because that's at least how I think about it. I don't really think of it as short term, or like, because it is short term, that allows me to recycle older content that's already been past like months even, that I can reshare that without having to feel like, oh, this is like outdated. Because I knew going back to when I posted that was really like truly evergreen content that I can just keep resharing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I wrote down your quote of let's reuse our content to save our sanity. I love it. That's so great. Honestly, though, like something that I think people don't realize too is that when we talk about reusing content, it doesn't necessarily mean just like I said, I'm going to take those previous wedding planning tips and I'm going to recreate them in the right size and then reshare them. But you can also take a reel and then turn that into a carousel, or you know what I mean? Like take the idea behind it. Like I took a reel and I turned it into, because it had like 4 points, and I turned it into a Threads post that did really well. And like you can just recreate the idea of whatever piece of content is into a totally different piece of content. And then nobody knows, like nobody even realizes that you've shared it before, because it's not like you're literally taking the exact same thing and then resharing it. You can create it in a whole separate way. So I just think that that's like a fun thing to do, because you've already done the work. Like you already have the idea, the concept, and then you're just taking it and reformatting it. But it's like the work's already really done. So I don't know. I like thinking about it that way.
Yeah, no, I think that that's such a great point that you brought up, just because, yeah, repurposing it, especially like it is evergreen content, but the way that people are taking it in, there are different learners, right? So like some people like to watch videos and doom scroll that way. Some people do like reading and like seeing the graphics. And so being able to repurpose their content for those different types of intakers is a great way to make sure that you are marketing to your ideal clients, no matter how they kind of visually learn or want to be marketed to.
Yeah, well, Danison, this has been awesome. I feel like you shared so many great nuggets of wisdom, and I'm really excited for everybody to get to hear this. But before we go, can you please share where everybody can find you online, share your Instagram so everyone can come give you a follow?
Yeah, so you can find me at Bowtie, the fun little thing that you wear, and Brush on Instagram. And then also, like you mentioned, we connected on Threads originally. So I love posting on Threads. It's kind of been my new thing. But yeah, that's mainly where you can find me. And that's where you'll find most of my like wedding content. And then I am actually launching a second business later this year, which will be geared towards more like educational content like this, for like just anything I love to learn and just share that with other wedding pros. And then also hoping to start kind of like bookkeeping and accounting services, much like your husband.
Amazing. I love it. Well, I'll share all of that good stuff in the show notes so people can find you. Thank you again just for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, no, I just absolutely love this conversation.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Event Crushed podcast. I hope you found value in this episode, and if you did, please consider sharing it with a wedding industry friend. We also hope you'll consider leaving a rating or review for the show to help other listeners find it. This podcast is edited and produced by Ace Sound Design. If you're looking to elevate your audio experience, their info can be found in the show description. As always, thank you for listening, and please connect with us on Instagram if you haven't already. Now get out there and crush it.